Florida has been a really popular place to move to, especially over the last few years. But the question is, will this hold true in 2024 and the years after that? In this video, I'm going to provide you with my predictions for Florida over the next few years. If you're especially looking to move here in Florida and you kind of want to have an idea of how things are going to evolve, watch this video, because at the very least, it's going to give you food for thought. Now, if you're new to this channel, I'm Katrin.pfitzenreiter, and I'm a real estate agent in Sarasota County and Manatee County. Do me a favor, like this video, does help out the video's performance, and we're going to get right into this video. Let's talk about migration into Florida first. So migration into Florida over the last 10-50 years has become really popular, but that has been fueled during COVID, where it seemed like almost everybody wanted to live in Florida. And so the question really is, can this type of migration hold true in the next 4 years or 5 years? Florida has been one of the top places that people move to, especially since the era of COVID. And what's really interesting is that the latest data points in 2022 are actually showing that more and more people have been moving into Florida in 2022 versus the year prior, especially from places such as New York and California. Here's a very telling chart. It pulls from the US Census data, and what it's showing is that net migration wise, Florida has had the largest net migration into Florida. And net migration is essentially the difference of those people moving in versus those moving out. And so Florida has had about 444,000 people added to the state, where just a year prior it was 185,000. Really, within 1 year's time, those that were added to the state, that number doubled. Florida also ranked #1 in domestic migration, #2 in international migration, and #1 with the most people moving in per day at 1,218. Now, what states across the United States are actually losing in terms of population, less population year over year? And that is, not surprisingly, California, New York, Illinois is in there, Louisiana, and New Jersey. They've had the largest negative net migration. And then you've got Florida, Texas, and North Carolina with the largest increase. But the question is, are people still going to want to live in Florida? Because yes, Florida's great for all the typical things that we talk about, and that is the warm weather year round. If you're somebody coming from New York or Canada or some of the other colder states, it's awesome, I think, living in a place that is consistently warm. You've got the no state income tax and just beautiful beaches all around in Florida. But there's also a dark side in Florida. We have the homeowners insurance crisis. Massive homeowners insurance increases over the last few years, really driven due to fraud and the hurricanes that have brushed through here over the last few years, most notably the hurricane that we've had last year, Hurricane Ian, and that's caused a lot of damage across Florida. Our homeowners insurance costs have increased dramatically, and in many cases, people have actually lost coverage and now are looking to find coverage if they can even get it. And so, those are some of the things that are really pain points now here in Florida. And for some people, especially looking in from the outside, can be demotivational. Yes, there's a dark side of living here in Florida too. And so the question really is, will that keep people from now wanting to move in? And how is that going to look like in terms of volume? And what will happen to the Florida population? Well, I believe that absolutely there's going to be quite a few people who are now not thinking about moving to Florida anymore. A lot of people are also priced out of moving to Florida. And so I think that the rate of moving into Florida and population growth is going to slow down. It's still going to be net positive, but it's not going to be anything like we've experienced during the COVID era. We have moved into hopefully what is our new normal. But people are going to want to move into Florida because maybe they can afford it depending on where they're moving from. But also, a lot of people are still chasing the beautiful beaches, the warm weather year round, and just living that tropical lifestyle that you don't really get anywhere else unless maybe you're wanting to move to California. But Florida is as tropical as can get here in the United States, and I think a lot of people still think of that as the perfect lifestyle. Well, what does the Office of Economic and Demographic Research actually say? They do a lot of studies, population studies, and they look out decades to have a better idea of where the population in a specific state is going to be, like in this case, of course, Florida. They're estimating that on average, the population in Florida is going to grow by about 1.64% from the year 2022 to 2030. And that is in comparison to the estimated US average of 0.64% population increase. So twice as much. But the research also indicates that the population growth in Florida is going to slow down. We can just refer to this chart over here that clearly indicates that right now the population growth in Florida is over 300,000 people. But as the years will go by, that number is expected to slowly dip into the 200,000 range. So yes, the population will still increase, just not at the same rate. Having looked at these estimates, I think it's fair enough to say that the expectation is that Florida is still going to be a very popular place to live in, except the population growth is going to slow down. Now, it's important to note that the population in Florida typically has increased mainly because of net migration, and that is going to be especially true in the future, where natural birth aren't going to add to the population increases anymore, because the number of deaths that are expected to happen in the near future is going to cancel out the number of births. And so if we see the population growth in Florida, it really is going to be mainly attributed to people moving in versus moving out, net migration. Now, the median price in Florida has been increasing for many years, and that's true even before COVID, but absolutely during COVID, the median price has shot up, and in some areas by 30 to 40%. And so a lot of people who've been waiting to purchase a home here in Florida are probably now outpriced. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And so those people, because they love Florida so much, may be looking to move to an alternative place that's just a little bit more affordable. So for example, the median price for a single family home right now in Sarasota is approximately $550,000 to about $600,000, which is quite a lot, right? Especially if you go back 3-4 years ago, that same house could easily have been bought for about $350,000 to $400,000. So a lot of people now are starting to look further south of Sarasota in places such as Northport or Englewood, where the median prices are a little bit more affordable. So I expect a lot of people to migrate within Florida, finding a more affordable place to move to. So those people who are just done with Florida, they might be looking at places right now such as Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, where real estate prices especially are more affordable. I believe that a lot of people who currently live in a flood zone really close to the water on the coast are going to want to sell and move more inland. And that's driven by the fact that perhaps they've gotten spooked due to what happened last year, Hurricane Ian. Maybe they've seen what happened in Fort Myers. It's the fear that's motivating them to sell, but also it may be driven by the homeowners insurance crisis. They're motivated to move inland to take advantage of the fact that homeowners insurance is probably going to be much more affordable, especially if you're in a flood zone X. And for those people moving into Florida, perhaps initially they were enthused or in love with the idea of being right by the water, but I think a lot of them are starting to sacrifice on that idea, and they're preferring to live just a little bit inward. And I don't mean central Florida, I'm talking about maybe 3, 4, 5 miles away from the coast in a flood zone X. So I think there's going to be kind of that shift from living really close to the water to just a little bit inland and being very cognizant when it comes to the flood zone. Now, I will say that the romanticism with living right by the water is always going to be there, and there's still going to be people who are going to want to live right on the Keys because it's just gorgeous, and they may just want to get a little bit smarter about what type of property they buy and just ensuring that their investment is going to be safe. Real estate prices. What do I think is going to happen in 2024? I am sorry to tell you guys, but I don't think the prices are going to crash. I've been saying that ever since I started doing videos because I just look at the data. You know, I have boots on the ground information too that I draw from, and I just don't see this market crashing anytime soon. As a matter of fact, if you go back in history, say 60, 70 years, there's only been a handful of times where the prices actually have come down, and really the most dramatic time is what we remember in modern history, and that's the crash of 2008. And that is so different than what is going on in today's world. But I also don't believe that we're going to see the appreciation that we were able to see in 2021 or 2022. I think those days are absolutely over, and that's one of the reasons why we don't see as many investors coming into this market anymore. I'm actually going to be very conservative, and I'm going with about 3 to maybe 7% next year. It really is going to depend also by where the mortgage interest rates are, which, by the way, they've come down quite a bit, and I think the latest data is showing that they're hovering right around, for the 30-year fixed, right around 6.5%. And right now the forecast for next year is that it's going to continue to decline. And if that happens, of course, there's going to be more interest in real estate here in the Florida market because more people are going to be able to afford it. And let's look at the latest data here. What are the prices now in Florida? I'm going to pull from SunStats data, and we have November 2023 here available to us. For single family homes, the median sales price right now is $413,000. How does that compare to same time last year? Because again, we're going to always want to compare to the same time last year because there's just so much seasonality built into our real estate market. If we go back to November of 2022, that was $400,000. The prices are up by 3.3% in November versus the same time last year. Now, there's been so much talk about a real estate crash for, gosh, ever, it seems like. But let's just take this year. I see a lot of crash videos that talk about how the market is shifting and how it's crashing. Well, let's look at these percentage changes year over year for January all the way up to November of 2023. Not once have we been in the negative. So absolutely, the market in general hasn't crashed here in Florida. But certainly there could be some places in Florida where the market could be trending down. Some places in Florida where the market is still increasing quite a bit versus what the Florida average is. So always go to a local real estate agent and have them pull local data just for you to get a better understanding of what's happening in that area that you're interested in. Now, I hear a lot of people say, well, the market must be crashing or it must be pivoting because the months of supply of inventory has increased quite a bit over the last few months. And I say, yeah, it has, but it was historically low. And I like to compare everything to pre-COVID days because during the COVID days, everything was so unprecedented. It just wasn't normal. So going back to pre-COVID days, you can see the trend line here. You know, when it comes to months of supply, we're very much on par where it was in 2019 and even the years prior. Now, this is interesting. Going back to 2008, look at how high months of supply of inventory was, and that was one of the reasons why prices came crashing down and really fast because there were just way too many homes on the market and just not enough people that were able to absorb all of the homes that were on the market. And we don't have this challenge right now. There's still not enough homes for the amount of buyers that are out there. Now, if months of supply in Florida, if that doesn't level off or come down, then yes, prices will come down because that just means it just isn't enough people for the number of homes that are on the market. But I just don't see that happening. I believe that once we move, especially into the spring season, that months of supply is going to come down some, or at the very least is going to level off. And just remember that where we are right now when it comes to month of inventory or when it comes to how long it takes for homes to start pending on the market, well, what we see in 2021 wasn't normal. So compared to 2019, and we're very much moving into a much more normalized real estate market. In the bigger cities in Florida, such as in Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa, Sarasota, we're going to see the demographical makeup changing somewhat. A lot of it is going to be driven by remote workers. Remote workers are going to continue to move to Florida because for them, all of a sudden, it's available. They are able to live in a tropical setting, work in a tropical setting because they're working remote. And that possibility wasn't really there for them in 2019 or prior to that. Thank you so much for watching today. I always appreciate when you guys do. Now, if you're interested in purchasing a home, whether it's an existing home or new construction, I do a lot of new construction as well, call me. I can help you in Sarasota County and Manatee County. And when you call me, you're going to be working directly with me. I hope to hear from you guys. Thank you so much, and I wish you guys the best in 2024.